everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Referee's Discretion. I'm Codd Sinclair, and today we have part 2 of our 4-part Trick or Treat series. This series is 4 weeks of reviews from WCW's Halloween Havoc pay-per-view event. For each review, I will be joined by somebody you've seen on PWO WrestleCast either Monday or Thursday or both. Joining me for part 2 is a man who needs no introduction, but of course he will introduce himself.
Hello everybody, this is the Dean of Old School. I'm here joining Mr. Codd Sinclair for his referee's discretion on the 1994 classic Halloween Havoc. I just want you to know I took this very seriously, and what I did was I actually went back and watched from about May through sort of after this pay-per-view of 1994. This was a huge time in WCW, as it was the beginning of the Hulk Hogan era. I had forgotten how much this pissed me off, and so I want to thank Ryan for that, the opportunity to relive this. First of all, let me just get this out of the way. If you know me at all, you've seen I'm not the hugest Hulk Hogan fan. I was a professional wrestling fan before Hulkamania. So I felt like when it came along, although I did like it a little bit at the time, after a while, it got so cartoonish that it was absurd and I didn't want to watch it anymore. And so that's what happened with me. I stuck with being an NWA/WCW fan, even watched AWA, USWA, everything else. And WWF was something I watched sort of as a last resort. So when my favorite wrestling program sold out to the dark side and hired Hulk Hogan, not just Hulk Hogan, but a bunch of mostly washed up WWF stars from the mid to late 80s, it wasn't exactly the greatest thing for me. And not just that, but they also started to be a little more cartoonish in their just in the guys they didn't bring in, so in the way they were presenting it. I know this was sort of a dark day right before we got Nitro and then the NWO. So not bad wrestling, though. They just some in-ring work was good, but we're going to go over this. And so here we go. Halloween Havoc 1994.
That's right. The host of Do Your Darn Homework, the Dean of Old School, Dwight Parker, is my special guest enforcer for this episode as we review WCW Halloween Havoc 1994. I want to say that I appreciate the dedication that Dwight has put into this, and I can't thank him enough for joining me. Just a quick note, though, about this video. Last week, Jeff and I were able to record over the app Zoom and make the episode together at one time. However, due to scheduling issues, Dwight and I were not able to do so. However, as you've been able to tell already, Dwight has recorded his portion of the review, and I will add in my pieces as we go. To start the show, though, video hype package briefly previewing the feud as of late between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. We are greeted by Tony Schiavone, Bobby the Brain Heenan in a neck brace, and Mean Gene Okerlund. T. Graham Brown sings the national anthem, and before we jump in, almost every match in this card gets a pre-match video package, just highlighting what has been going on in the previous weeks. I love that, especially if it's meaningful clips. WWE kind of does that now, but they'll show you, hey, 3 weeks ago, these two same guys fought. 2 weeks ago, same match. Last week, same match. And no stories built, and there's really no need to show 3 separate video clips of the same match you're about to watch. So kudos to WCW for putting the video clips together before the matches. But just to save some time, give some more time to our special guest enforcer, I will skip over them. So with all that being said, I will kick it off to Dwight to start us out.
All right, to talk about this first match. Before that, I just want to throw out, it's kind of weird, it seems, when Hulk Hogan signed with WCW, I wasn't sure whether they had made some sort of deal, because it seemed like if you had a pay-per-view where Hulk Hogan appeared, Sting didn't appear, and then if Sting appeared, Hulk Hogan didn't did appear. I mean, it was like a switch back and forth. I don't know if that was a great idea. And so if I get confused, I know Fall Brawl was just before this was from pretty close to my hometown in Lynchburg. It was held Roanoke, Virginia. So I remember that pretty vividly. And then we'll talk about that a little bit, but there was some weird things going on, probably to do with some backstage stuff. So I'll leave that out there. We're going to talk about this first match. There actually was a match before that they showed on Main Event. Booker T beat Brian Armstrong. That Brian Armstrong via pinfall after hitting a flying forearm. Yeah, that was there was a little mix up as far as there was like a family emergency or something. But anyway, well, we're going to start off with the actual first match on the pay-per-view, which was Johnny B. Bad versus Honky Tonk Man. This is a perfect example of what's wrong with this, and this match is going to epitomize a lot of the bad parts of this pay-per-view. It's where a washed-up WWF guy comes in on the heels of signing Hulk Hogan and wrestles a WCW guy in a ho-hum match. This match, they kept announcing, was a 10-minute time limit, and if you could tell by the number of rest holds, you absolutely knew this was going to go the time limit draw, because in a 10-minute match, why on earth do you need a rest hold? Except for if you're the Honky Tonk Man and you are way past your prime. And if you don't know the term blown up, watch this match, because Honky Tonk Man is blown up after about a minute and a half of this match. Either way, Johnny B. Bad was also one of the people I hated in WCW then, because he was very much a cartoonish character. The boxing stuff, just he was I would say a decent worker and a decent character, but way more character than wrestler, and I wasn't down with it. So with that being said, yeah, you probably want to watch this match, but you probably want to feel sorry for Honky Tonk Man, because he definitely needed to not be wrestling.
All right, as Dwight has already said, the first match, the opening match of the evening, is for the WCW Television Championship. It is the Honky Tonk Man challenging Johnny B. Bad. As Dwight has already said, this match is a 10-minute time limit, and throughout the 10-minute match, commentary team constantly references that. But as I mentioned for WCW Halloween Havoc 1992, the graphics here are fantastic. They are a welcome sight to see in 2020, where everything is just a copy of the previous week's show. Johnny B. Bad out to the ring in fangs, a little bit of a nice touch there. Honky Tonk taking control early, but Johnny messes up Honky's hair, and he gets an atomic drop. Honky Tonk Man back in control, locks in a sleeper in the middle of the ring. He starts his comeback, but is cut short. Johnny against the ropes, lands a sunset flip for a near fall. Honky working on the back and shoulders, but Johnny working back to a vertical base. Honky Tonk Man has another sleeper locked in, but when Johnny gets back to a vertical base this time, Honky goes for a shake, rattle, and roll, but Johnny B. Bad reverses with a back drop. This is something that Dwight mentioned in his half of this match. You could just tell at this point, with all of the rest holds that were going on, is that this wasn't a rush to get a decision within the 10-minute time limit. This was how do we fill 10 minutes of time and still come out with a time limit draw. But to continue on with the match, Honky Tonk Man ducks a splash attempt, tries to get away with his feet on the ropes, but to no avail. Back in the ring, though, Honky Tonk Man working on the back once again, and we are in this for a while. Johnny back to vertical base, and he is on the comeback trail. Goes for a big swing on Honky Tonk Man, ducks, hits a back body drop. Both are throwing punches and brawling as the time limit draw was reached. Still your television champion, though, Johnny B. Bad. Post-match, though, Honky Tonk Man trying to work over Johnny B. Bad, but Johnny disposes of him rather quickly. This is a half count for me. Boring opener. You had Johnny B. Bad in his high points. show a little bit of athleticism. He did when he was younger, but definitely plays to the crowd a lot. And Honky Tonk Man with just rest holds. Oh my gosh. It was rough to watch at times, but not a botchy match. It was pretty clean. Outside of that, nothing to report. We get a video package from Clash of Champions of a masked man jumping Hulk Hogan from behind. He would eventually come back later in the evening for his match against Ric Flair, and the masked man interfered in that. We then transition to an amateur video that catches Mr. T, the special guest referee for the main event, with Ric Flair coming out of a restaurant, which prompts Tony Schiavone to ask, whose side is Mr. T on?
All right, match 2 saw one of my favorite professional wrestlers, Paul Orndorff, from back in the day, tagged up with his partner, Pretty Paul Roma, in the Pretty Wonderful tag team against the WCW World Tag Team Champions, which were Stars and Stripes, the Patriot, and Marcus Alexander Bagwell. Don't call him Buff. But this match, God bless Paul Orndorff. You could see the age was catching up with him, and Paul Roma also seemed to be a guy that just was wrong place, wrong time, because he definitely, with that look and his athletic ability, should have been a bigger star than he was, but he wasted a lot of time just being a job guy in WWF. Regardless, this was a match that we had seen in Fall Brawl, same teams, and they had been wrestling on a couple of WCW Saturday nights, and so we'd actually seen the title change where Stars and Stripes got the belt. This was a pretty cool finish, I thought. Bagwell he hits the suplex on Orndorff, and he's got him hooked like in the fisherman suplex hook, and then Roma comes off the top rope with an elbow. That was a good finish to it. The heels win. Referee's back was turned, so it was a kind of a finish. But anyway, Pretty Wonderful win the title. But I didn't hate the match, and I had forgotten just how much, just how athletic Paul Roma was, but Paul Orndorff is definitely on the downside of his career at this point. So that's that one.
Thanks, Dwight. Unfortunately, I did not have as high a praise for Pretty Wonderful in this match as you did, but I will get into that. So this match was for the World Tag Team Championships, as you had Pretty Wonderful, which is Paul Roma and Paul Orndorff, taking on Stars and Stripes, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, and the Patriot. They are the defending champions, as Dwight has already spoken. Roma interferes very early. Buff does. We have a huge melee to start. Everybody gets back in the ring eventually, though. Then we get Paul Roma, Buff Bagwell in the match. A lot of quick tags here to start. A lot of good tag team work. Paul Orndorff and Buff Bagwell, now the legal men. A headlock and a tag to Paul Roma with some double team work as the ref's back is turned, showing that they are the true heels of this match. Roma putting the boots to Buff, and Paul Orndorff getting some shots in as the Patriot tries to get in the ring. So now we're seeing a lot of face tag team versus heel tag team tactics. Buff finally gets the tag, and Patriot hits a big clothesline in the corner. Buff back in the match. Roma tags in Paul Orndorff. Orndorff hits the electric boogie woogie elbow drop. Then tags Roma back in. My favorite part of this review was saying that, so thank you, WCW Halloween Havoc. Paul Roma hits a backbreaker, then almost misses a dropkick on Buff. This was a little sloppy. Buff into the corner, but he jumps off the second rope, hits a crossbody for a near fall. Roma pushes Buff into his corner and tags in Orndorff. Orndorff lands a better dropkick than Paul Roma. Then locks in a guillotine looking for the submission. Buff against the ropes, though. Roma with a knee to the back and a clothesline from Orndorff. Some good heel tactics once again. Orndorff goes for a suplex. Buff reverses with one of his own. And instead of going for the tag, he goes for the pin, and it is a near fall. Buff goes for a backslide, but Roma breaks it up. Buff has a sleeper in, and the Patriot starts taking it to Roma. Pretty Wonderful down in the ring together, and they both receive clotheslines when they get back to their vertical bases. The ref is getting the Patriot back into his corner. Buff Bagwell hits a fisherman suplex, which was his finisher at the time, but Roma hits a huge flying elbow but from the top rope. Orndorff rolls over, gets the pin and the win. This was a very, very solid 1 count. You know what? Scratch that. This is a 1.5 count match. This is a slightly above average tag team match. I love the finish. It was a good story as it shows the inexperience of the now former champions and the experience of the heel, now new tag team champions. It goes to show you that, age is just a number, and Paul Orndorff looked good in 1994. Mean Gene is backstage with Sensuous Sherry and Ric Flair. They have multiple woo-offs throughout this promo, but all you need to know is that Ric Flair says they are ready to, and that the celebration is already planned, and he will be the one to end Hulk Hogan's career. With that being said, let's kick it over to Dwight to get our next match started.
Okay. Dave Sullivan defeated Kevin Sullivan. All right. This match was like 5 minutes long. Not a lot to talk about, but I'm going to. If I had remembered this angle and this match when we did a countdown of the worst gimmicks ever, this was the worst gimmick ever. Dave Sullivan not only is portraying either a child or a mentally handicapped person, but he is being portrayed as a Hulkamaniac, which is absurd that your gimmick is playing off another guy's gimmick who's on the show. And not like a parody either or an homage. It's basically he's a child dressed up as Hulk Hogan and going and wrestling a Hulk Hogan match, and then telling his brother that Hulk Hogan told him to say his prayers and eat his vitamins. I mean, this is like Eugene and the superfan Mickey James, all of this mixed together, like the worst rip-off gimmick, but it's on the same show. So this is like the Midnight Rockers meets Eugene, but on the same show that the Rock and Roll Express is wrestling the Midnight Express. I mean, it's absurd. This is every bit as awful as you can imagine it, and it ends in a count out of all things. So this is, I don't even want to talk about this anymore because this is what made me hate this period in WCW. Sorry, Dave Sullivan.
All right, this is the brother versus brother match. We had Kevin Sullivan versus Dave Sullivan. To quickly comment on Dwight's reference about Dave Sullivan's character, his character was portrayed as having dyslexia. He would constantly mispronounce his own name as Evad, which is obviously Dave spelled backwards. Absolutely correct, though. His intro music is I Want to Be a Hulkamaniac, because he is Hulk Hogan's #1 fan. But yeah, this match was difficult to get through, to say the least. An elbow from Dave sends Kevin to the outside. Kevin's over with a standing drop kick, but Dave recovers and gets Kevin in the corner. Kevin off the ropes now, gets a back body drop from Dave, both men on the outside, and Kevin runs Dave into the ring post. Back in the ring, Kevin in control, grabs the Hogan headband and puts it down Dave's mouth. Follows that up with a double gut stomp. Kevin to the top rope, Dave body slams him off the top into the middle of the ring. Dave now goes to Hulk up and take control. Kevin is begging Dave to stop with the Hogan headband, goes to make amends, and Kevin Sullivan, being the dastardly heel that he is, gives him a right hand. Both men now on the outside, they are slugging it out. And you see the referee in the ring. He's counting a little faster, and he's making his count much more audible. Kevin runs Dave into the ring post again, but this time Dave uses his momentum to roll back into the ring. Kevin fails to get back into the ring before the count of 10, so he loses the match via countout. I'm giving this a 0. All intents and purposes, it was mostly clean, but a lot of stalling, a lot of slow movements. Then the finish for me, and this is the most egregious error, other than absolutely booking this match at all. Horrible job by the referee. If it wasn't a referee's job, horrible timing by both performers. Just the fact that the official not only counted faster, as soon as he got to 7 or 8 and then saw that Kevin Sullivan might get back in the ring, he went 8, 9, 10, like really quick. Not sure what happened there, but it looked really amateurish, and it looked really bad.
Okay, then we get a WCW match. Okay, we get Dustin Rhodes against Arn Anderson. Okay, now Arn Anderson had one of the funniest spots in this whole match was him trying to convince the referee that Dustin Rhodes was pulling his hair. Now, I've heard some people think that was stupid, but I think it's hilarious. And it just shows Arn Anderson, and he can do it with a straight face, still being the intense, tough Arn Anderson while he's making an absurd joke or an absurd spot in the match. Loved it. This was every bit of what you thought it would be. It was, hard-hitting match. I think it was one of those things where it sort of had suffered when we'd seen it. It went back to the War Games match where Dustin and Dusty and the Nasty Boys went up against Arn and Robert Parker and the Stud Stable, same kind of groups. But anyway, this was a decent match, man. Meng's out there. He got involved. He's just such a badass. It's a 10-minute match, but it was good. I enjoyed it, but I mean, I would say it's a 3-star match at best, but probably not these guys' best even against each other. But they're so good. And at that time, Dustin Rhodes was really in his prime. This is just before he goes off to be Goldust. So, yeah, loved it. Liked it.
I absolutely agree, Dwight. This match is the Enforcer, Arn Anderson, being accompanied by Colonel Robert Parker and Meng versus Dustin Rhodes. This is a WCW match. Great catch-as-catch-can wrestling that starts. As Dwight said, Arn keeps complaining that Dustin is pulling his hair. Obviously, not that much there to pull. Arn into the corner. Dustin hits an atomic drop, then a clothesline. Dustin to the top. Arn crotches him, follows him up, gets knocked off, and then Dustin with a Kane-esque top rope clothesline. Now Arn's chance for some top rope offense. Dustin tries to get the boots up, but Arn goes to the ground game. He goes for a figure 4, but Dustin kicks him out of the ring. Arn going for a clothesline, but Dustin clotheslines the ring post. Back in the ring, Dustin really working the bad arm of Arn Anderson. Dustin goes for a lariat, but Arn ducks, pulls the top rope, and Dustin goes crashing to the floor. Remember that for later. Dustin back in the ring now. Arn catches him off the ropes and connects with an elbow to the gut. Arn catapults Dustin's neck across the bottom rope. Both men off the rope. Both men double clothesline. Both men down. Slugging it out now. Dustin hits a big boot off the ropes. Dustin connects with a lariat for a near fall. Dustin calling for a finish. Getting all amped up. Arn tries to catch him for a DDT, but Dustin holds onto the top rope. Dustin pulls down his knee pad, goes for a knee drop on Arn's bad arm, but misses. Arn off the ropes now. Sunset flip, uses the rope to try to steal the win. The referee kicks his hand off the rope. Arn starts to argue. Dustin rolls up Arn and gets the win. Post-match, Arn hits Dustin with a huge lariat that turns him absolutely inside out. And I say post-match, this is like the bell rings, Arn's to his feet, bang. Right after that, though, hits a DDT. Arn continues to beat down well after the match is over. This is a solid 1.5 count for me here. Good back and forth action. I just don't think that there was enough time to get better action in and to build the story a little more. It seemed like the whole match was rushed, though. Like they had to make sure they got, all of the aspects of the main event in, or maybe one of the previous matches ran a little long. But like I said, overall, this is a solid match. This is one that you can skip to when you go to watch this event. Mean Gene backstage with Hogan, Jimmy Hart, and Brother Brutai. Typical Hogan promo here, though. A lot of dudes and brothers, and a lot of what you're gonna do's. But all of that, Hogan says that he trusts Mr. T to call it right down the middle. Transitioning to Dwight now as he kicks us off for the next match.
Okay. All right. Remember what I said about the Honky Tonk Man, Johnny B. Bad? Okay. Well, we're going to do it again with Jim Duggan and Steve Austin. All right. Not to mention also, when I was watching all the matches preparing for this, I got to see the Attitude Era as it left WCW. So earlier, not in this show, but in one previous, you got to see the Cactus Jack leave. And here, this is Steve Austin as he's getting ready to transition out of WCW. And we have Dustin Rhodes, who's getting ready to go be Gold Dust. And so it was one of those, and don't forget Road Dogg, he wasn't on the pay-per-view, but he was on the show. So you had a lot of people that were going off to better and more interesting things. Unfortunate. I mean, they at a time when maybe if they'd have kept him around, we could have done something. I don't know. Regardless, so Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who is basically a Hulk Hogan ripoff, so he is Dave Sullivan, not as obvious a ripoff, but basically Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Hulk Hogan have the same gimmick. I still can't get the USA chance when you're wrestling another guy from the United States, but regardless, if you didn't watch the previous, I think that was Fall Brawl where Steve Austin lost the belt to Hacksaw Jim Duggan after having it handed to him from Ricky Steamboat. And so he basically held the belt for about 30 seconds. He lost it with a backdrop. I've never seen a title change hands on a backdrop, which isn't as bad as the finger poke of doom, but the finger poke of doom was a joke, so this is almost as bad. So then Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Steve Austin gets his rematch, and for the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship. Jim Duggan wins the match. Steve Austin is disqualified, and no wonder he got pissed and left. I mean, seriously, you can see Steve Austin, who in this match is given 110%. I mean, to be a guy that's being treated the way he is and having to put over Hacksaw Jim Duggan, which is absurd. But I mean, you can see the Steve Austin. That's the Steve. I mean, he's going to be the Steve Austin that we all see. He was there. He was excellent then. Gave it 100%. This is a terrible match. And I'm sorry that I watched it.
All right. Match for the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship as the challenger, stunning Steve Austin, challenges the champion, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Austin jumps Duggan before the bell rings and starts immediately putting the boots to him. Austin gets a clothesline out of the corner and a scoop slam from Duggan. Austin off the ropes and Duggan catches him with a sleeper. Austin working on the knee, goes for a figure four. Duggan kicks him into the corner, pulls his trunks to roll him up, and we do see a good portion of Austin's rear. Austin does quickly gain control, though, by raking the eyes. Duggan lands an atomic drop that sends Austin through the ropes. Austin trying to call for a timeout from the outside, but to no avail. Duggan working on a headlock. Shoulder tackle to Austin, and Austin cuts him off with a kick to the gut. Austin now with a second rope double axe handle from one corner, another one from the opposite corner, and then goes for the third one. And he gets a big clothesline from Duggan. Duggan really hitting the comeback meter. Big hands from Duggan, but then Austin sneaks in a low blow. Austin in control to the second turnbuckle, connects with an elbow drop to the head. Austin to the top of the adjacent turnbuckle and misses a splash. More big hands from Duggan and a big back body drop. A big clothesline, and Austin is just catching his breath against the ropes. Duggan lines up for a 3-point stance, runs at Steve Austin, and Austin launches him over the top rope. Austin is disqualified. Hacksaw Jim Duggan retains. Post-match, Austin giving the boots to Duggan. Duggan gets his trademark 2x4 and chases Austin out of the ring. This is a 1 count for me. Nothing special. In the matches I've seen with Steve Austin in WCW, he was brutally underutilized. Just doing basic research, he got the rubs. But as Dwight said, I can see why he was frustrated and why he would eventually leave WCW. This match had story, but it had so much more potential than what they gave us as the final product. Duggan has always been one-dimensional, but he was super over with the crowd in this one. It was decent for what it was, but it could have been so much more. Mean Gene on the entrance ramp welcoming Sting. Sting said he's there for one reason, and that is for the Hogan Flair Steel Cage retirement match. Before we get there, though, we've got a couple more stops to make. Dwight, what's our next matchup?
All right. Now we have Vader against the Guardian Angel. Now, if you've been watching WWE programming lately, you will be familiar with the Vader versus Guardian Angel. That's Ray Traylor or Big Boss Man and Big Bubba Rogers, whatever you want to know him as. And this would have been a decent match, except for this match had been on every pay-per-view up until this match, and it basically ends the same way every time. With Harley Race getting involved. The previous pay-per-view Fall Brawl, it was the triangle match where the Guardian Angel went against Vader to see who fought Sting. I will say this, a couple things stood out. I had forgotten how athletic Ray Traylor was, and I've always been a huge fan of Vader, just as then and now. I think he was probably top 3 super heavyweight of all time. He showed all of that here. Harley Race was a great manager at this point. Ray Traylor does an insecurity in this match. So this, if you're going to watch a match, and besides the main event, which we'll talk about shortly, yeah, watch this one, because definitely you forgot how good a wrestler he was.
Thank you, Dwight, and I completely agree. The matchup is the Guardian Angel, also known as the Big Boss Man, versus Vader, being accompanied by Harley Race. The Guardian Angels are at ringside for the match. Sting sitting right next to Muhammad Ali. Vader stops by Ali and says, "You're the man," not playing as though he is the heel for this matchup. While that was happening, Bossman pulls Harley Race into the ring, gives him a clothesline, and the match is started. Some slaps to Vader's face to start, but Vader turns it around, landing some clubbing blows in the corner. A few clotheslines later, and Bossman is sent to the outside. Bossman gets Vader to the floor, but then turns his attention to Harley Race. He rolls him in and starts working him over. Vader in the ring now. Bossman poorly scoops Vader onto Harley Race. It looked a little rushed, but got the job done. With that, the crowd is losing it at this point. Headbutts to Vader, then a big splash from Bossman. Vader throws him right hands, tries to land a suplex, but Bossman lands one instead. Bossman lands a big boot. Vader throws some stiff jabs, and Bossman goes down. Vader from the second rope now. Bossman kind of catches him and turns him into a scoop slam. It was really smooth. This is very good to start. Bossman to the second rope, or to the top rope, lands a diving headbutt, and as Dwight said, Bossman is super athletic here, hits an enziguri, and then will clothesline Vader to the outside. A strange sequence here, though. It looked like both men try to clothesline at this point. but Bossman sells it, and he is down for a good bit. Vader with a scoop slam goes to the second turnbuckle for a Vader bomb, but Bossman will kick out. Vader back up for another Vader bomb, but Bossman gets the knees up, a splash and a spine buster from Bossman, both for a near fall. Crowd is really into this match. Bossman catches him, hits a Bossman slam, but Harley Race breaks the count. Bossman chases Harley Race, gives him a suplex. Right as both men get to the mat, Vader lands a huge splash and gets the 3 count. I initially had this at a 2 count, but I chose to give it a 1.5 count. I liked this match. It was a big hoss fight. Both men looked good, and both were very athletic for their size. Not the cleanest match. Vader not known for his in-ring prowess. But with that being said, I could have done without the interference from Harley Race. But all in all, this is a good match. This is one you should definitely watch when you go to watch this show. Mean Gene introduces Thomas Hitman Hearns. It's really difficult to hear him because he's so soft-spoken. But he says it doesn't matter how Hogan or Flair have to do it. They just have to win, win, win. And we are so close to the end here. Dwight, give us our next match.
All right, and then we have the Nasty Boys. Hulk Hogan hangers on. Defeating Terry Funk and Bunkhouse Buck. We used to know him as Jimmy Golden back in the days. With Colonel Robert Parker and Meng. When in a little screwy spot, Meng blasts Funk and then sags. Pile drives Funk on top of a jack-o'-lantern. Okay, and that's how the match ends. Because nothing hurts more than getting pile drived onto a pumpkin. Now, I get it. It's Halloween Havoc, and we had to have a Halloween spot. But Terry Funk deserves better, and of course, just in a couple years, he's going to get better and be ECW World Heavyweight Champion. Bunkhouse Buck, Jimmy Golden. I mean, these guys are. He was a territory guy. Robert Fuller, Colonel Robert Parker, and he had a tag team for years down in Mid-Southern, down in I don't know, that's mid-Tennessee, so that's with Alabama, Mississippi, those places where they were big time. But anyway, this is nothing to really write home about. It's what you think it is. It's 4 guys who basically brawl, and that's pretty much all. I mean, I didn't hate it, but obviously I never was a big fan of the Nasty Boys. They were good when they first came out, but they were sort of past their prime, and this was sort of coming off that WWF run. So I sort of saw them as a WWF cast-off team, and so I didn't think much of them then. But anywho, 8 minutes, not a waste of time, but you can fast forward to the finish. And then forget you watched it.
Dwight hitting the nail on the head with that one. Just to recap, we have Terry Funk and Bunkhouse Buck with Colonel Robert Parker and Meng taking on the Nasty Boys, the team of Jerry Sags and Brian Knobbs. This match is a complete mess. Brawl before the opening bell. Once it rings, it takes Terry Funk and Bunkhouse Buck almost a full 2 minutes to get their ring gear off and to get back in the ring. About 60 to 70% of the way through this match, Terry Funk, Bunkhouse Buck on the outside. Funk takes a steel chair and hits himself 9 times directly in the head with a steel chair. Best part of this match. And that's including the finish. So, back in the ring, we're brawling again. Bunk has a foreign object. Sags points it out to the ref, and the ref tries to get it away from Bunk. Funk has Knobbs' arm behind his back. Meng goes for a shot with the brass knuckles, but Knobbs ducks and decks Funk. Sags has the pumpkin in the ring now, as Dwight has already shared with us. He pile drives Funk into the pumpkin, and Knobs gets the win. 0. I'm giving this a 0 count. I almost gave it a half count just because they use the pumpkin in the finish and it goes with the gimmick. And the 9 unprotected chair shots Terry Funk gave himself. But when those are the 2 best parts of your match, that means you got a problem. Before we get to the main event, Mean Gene introduces WCW President Bill Shaw, who presents Muhammad Ali a check for his foundation. He then introduces Senior Vice President Eric Bischoff, who presents a plaque to Ali for all of his contributions to the community and his foundation.
And finally, we get to the main event. And now, in the previous Fall Brawl, we had probably one of the strangest 20 minutes of a pay-per-view I'd ever seen. Instead of having a match, we had a 20-minute phone call between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, during which I would say I hate those contract signing spots they do on TV. Those are all, every single one of them that's ever been is better than this 20-minute phone call at Fall Brawl between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair to set this up. We had been going on since Bash at the Beach, with Hulk Hogan being there, this mysterious man in black, the masked man, who is the masked man, who had, attacked Hulk Hogan and over, and it was difficult to see. One time on one of the attacks, it was obviously Arn Anderson. There was much speculation over who it was. And eventually in this match, so we get in a cage because we can't have the sensational Sherry, or sensuous Sherry, as she's referred to here, get involved on behalf of Ric Flair. And we've got Jimmy Hart out there to complete the WWF mid-80s theme with Hulk Hogan. It's in a cage, so the man in black can't attack him. So, anywho, it's a good match. I mean, this is probably one of Hulk Hogan's best in-ring matches that I can recall. I mean, obviously Ric Flair's just a super worker, and I mean, he made Hogan look good, and Hogan, I mean, they really worked together well in this match. So it's really a highlight. I didn't hate watching it. Mr. T as a special guest referee they sort of teased that as Mr. T. Maybe he's on Hulk Hogan's side, maybe he's not. I mean, this is 1994. Okay. I'll have to check. Let me, you know what? I'm able to do this right now, so I'm going to. Mr. T at that time was a special referee. Obviously had been in WrestleMania 1. He'd been in WrestleMania 2. He boxed Roddy Piper. But Mr. T hadn't been on television in 7 years. This is 7 years after the A-Team had gone off TV. I mean, to say that he was irrelevant would be strange. And I forgot to talk about all the celebrities that were on this show. We had Muhammad Ali. We had Tommy Hearns. It was a lot of Detroit-specific celebrities. Hank Aaron, I think, was on here, which I don't get. I mean, I get it, but then I don't get it. Muhammad Ali was pretty cool. And then the little spot where Vader comes out and salutes him was I thought it was awesome moment. But anyway, he's out there. Just before this, they'd given Muhammad Ali an award or something. Great. I'm not sure it was worth the money they spent on the celebrities, but especially I'm not sure that the money they spent ever on Michael Buffer saying "Let's get ready to rumble" was ever worth it. Regardless, Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair had a good match. So at this point during the match, Sherry starts climbing the outside of the cage. and she's trying to hand Flair the belt, I guess, to use. I don't know. So Jimmy Hart grabs her and pulls off her skirt, which, that was a shocking move, and she's wearing like garter and stockings, and then Sting comes in. He's going to help stop Sherry and get her down because she's climbing at the cage, and then the Masked Man comes out and hits Sting. So Sherry climbs the cage. She gets in. They handcuff Mr. T to the ropes, which I still don't get that, because obviously you can count 1, 2, 3. You don't have to be next to him. And that's exactly what happened, because eventually Hogan gets a leg drop, pins 1, 2, 3. But then the Masked Man comes in and starts attacking Hogan, and they're fighting it. He rips off the mask, and who does it turn out to be but Brutus, Brother Brutai, Brutus Beefcake, whatever you want to call him, the ultimate Hulk Hogan hanger-on. So we have got a show full of Hulk Hogan hangers-on, which will be the theme of WCW for a while. After that, then Kevin Sullivan comes down and joins in on the attack, and then don't you know who shows up? Wait a second, another Hulk Hogan friend, but Avalanche. John Tenta, he comes down and they beat down Hogan, and then Sting comes in and makes the save. This was what I didn't want to see. It was like 7 years ago. These people were awesome. This is 1987 through 1989 WWF, and they just tried to recreate it in WCW, which I did not like. And basically that was what they did until the NWO came in, and we got that whole thing. But Hulk Hogan destroys everything he touches, in my humble opinion. And a lot of what you saw on this show was very Friends of Hulk. And I mean, we had Honky Tonk Man, we had Paula Orndorff in this show, we had the Dave Sullivan, obviously absurd thing, we had Hacksaw Jim Duggan, we had Big Boss Man, we had the Nasty Boys, we had Jimmy Hart, we had Avalanche, we had Brutus. I mean, it was the Hulk Hoganizing of WCW. If I had to give like a rating for any of these matches, I would say the last match was decent. So I'm not going to let Ryan give the final. I'm sorry, Codd Sinclair. I'm going to let you give the final ratings, but the Hogan Ric Flair match is certainly worth a watch. The Vader Guardian Angel match is absolutely worth a watch. Dustin Rhodes and Arn Anderson have had better. And then just check out Paul Roma, just the finish of that, because that dude was super athletic. The rest of it you can miss. Peace. This is the Dean of Old School. Do your damn homework. Woo.
Dwight, incredible way to go out. I'll circle back to your half at the end of this part of the review. But just to circle back, the main event of the evening is for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. It is a steel cage retirement match with special guest referee Mr. T. We have the challenger Ric Flair with Sensuous Sherry versus the champion Hulk Hogan, being accompanied by Jimmy Hart and Brother Brutai, although we only see Jimmy Hart at ringside. So Mr. T out first, no music. Has some Red Wings gear on though, with them being in Detroit. We get the introduction from Michael Buffer, all the pyro for Flair, then again, all the pyro for Hogan. Then we get all the pyro from the ring post as the cage is lowered. This cage is absolutely wobbly as heck, making its way down from the rafters. It scared me as they were lowering it. Thank goodness in 2020, it's so much easier to just lower from the ceiling. Hogan is all over Flair to start. Mr. T stepping in when Hogan is using his t-shirt to choke or his bandana to jam down Flair's mouth. Flair with a rake to the eyes and is in control until he tries to throw Hulk Hogan into the cage. Hogan throws him twice head first into the cage. Flair targeting the bad knee of Hogan. As we have already shared, this is due to the Masked Man getting some shots into that knee. More Hogan offense, though, throwing Flair into the cage in various ways. Hogan somehow gets his shirt back, starts choking Flair again, but Mr. T takes the shirt away. Hogan chases Flair up the cage, and he follows up. Hogan hits Flair's head off the cage and chokes him over top of it. He rakes Flair's back, and he gets straddled on the top rope. Flair goes for a figure four, but Hogan rolls him up for a near fall. Flair with chops in the corner. Hogan shakes it off, but not budging. Hogan grinds Flair's head against the cage and follows up with a back body drop. Flair trying to escape the cage, but Hogan cuts him off, and after a few chops, knocks Flair onto the top rope again. Flair counters a headlock with a back body drop, and he gets right back to the knee once more. Flair going to rip the bandages off of Hulk Hogan's knee, but Mr. T gets involved and pushes Flair to the mat. Flair is right back up, though, and right back to Hogan's knee. Flair locks in the figure four, and the crowd comes unglued. Hogan rolls it over, and Flair immediately lets go. Hogan off the ropes, Mr. T in the way, and he gets inadvertently shoulder tackled. Flair starts putting the boots to Mr. T after he didn't recover in time to count the pin for him. Mr. T ends up handcuffed to the steel cage. This is when things get a little crazy, as Dwight has already touched on. Sherry climbs the outside of the cage, and Jimmy Hart follows her up. She tries to go back up, but Sting gets involved and pulls her down. The Masked Man comes from under the ring and takes a lead pipe to Sting and Jimmy Hart. Sherry climbs all the way back up and hits Hogan with a double axe handle, even though he was unfazed. What a move from sensuous Sherry. Hogan sits up and hits both Flair and Sherry with a clothesline and a scoop slam. Hogan with some more clotheslines to both of them. Yet another backdrop to Flair. Sherry tries to climb out, but she gets power slammed by Hogan. Flair tries to climb out, but Hogan gets him, crotches him again. Sherry eats a big boot from Hogan. Flair chops Hogan. Hogan hulks up. Flair eats a big boot, an atomic leg drop, and Hulk Hogan gets the 3 count from Mr. T. Ric Flair is retired. I can't say that with a straight face. But yeah, Hogan is your winner. He retains the championship. I am giving this a solid 2 count. I was pleasantly surprised. This had a big fight feel with all of the star power in and around the ring. Even though throughout the match the same sequence was repeated at least once. And that's fine. Flair carried the match. The drama included within the match carried it. I was taken out of everything for a bit when Sherry and the Masked Man got involved, but Sherry taking the bumps that she did keeps the score where it is. Post-match, Hogan receiving the WCW World Heavyweight Championship from Muhammad Ali. As Hogan is flexing and posing to the fans, the Masked Man slides back in with a lead pipe. He stands behind him for what feels like forever. Hogan catches the pipe, blocks it, one right hand, and Hogan unmasks the Masked Man to reveal that it is Brother Brutai. Hogan is stunned, but he can't be for long because in comes Kevin Sullivan and Avalanche. Brutai calling the shots, telling Avalanche to hit a power slam and an Avalanche slam. Sting is back out to help Hulk Hogan. Hits a huge crossbody onto Avalanche and Brother Brutai. As Brutai begs for his life, Kevin Sullivan pulls him out of the ring. I won't go too far down this rabbit hole because in December, I will be reviewing Starrcade 1994. However, just as a forewarning, we get Sting versus the Avalanche, Mr. T versus Kevin Sullivan, and Hulk Hogan, and this is the main event. Hulk Hogan versus the Butcher, also known as Brother Brutai. So my final grade for WCW Halloween Havoc 1994 is 1 out of 5 stars. That seems harsh, but I'll get there. The Ric Flair award goes to, dare I say it, Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. The Russo award goes to Kevin Sullivan. Kevin gets the Russo award here because he was in that awful match against his brother Dave. And then he shows up at the end with Avalanche, and that will all lead to him in a wrestling match versus Mr. T. All of that encompassed why I gave the award to him. What I will say, though, is that this show ended much better than 1992. However, the same inconsistency that plagued that show is evident in this show. Whereas 1992 was booked stronger on the first half, this show was about every other match. Starting at the tag team title match, going every other match, I didn't rank a match below a 1 count, which does transition to about 2.5 to 3 stars. Starting with the opener and going every other match, I didn't rank any match above a 1, so everything was 2 stars or lower. Consistency is absolutely key when you're putting together a wrestling card, and I just didn't feel the consistency or the flow in this card to feel that it warranted anything higher than a 1. Those are my thoughts on WCW Halloween Havoc 1994. What did you think of this event? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to watch WrestleCast live every Monday and Thursday on Facebook and YouTube, and listen on the go through Apple Podcast. On YouTube, you can check out Patrick Lilly's Creative Control. There will be a new episode in the coming weeks. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and follow Podcast World Order on all social media platforms. If you like what we're doing and would like to support PWO, you can find us on Ko-fi at the link in the description box. Once again, a special thank you to the Dean of Old School, Dwight Parker. You can find him on Twitter. His handle is in the description box. You can also find him on WrestleCast, and he is working on the inaugural episode of Do Your Darn Homework that will be on YouTube very soon. For next week's episode, we are halfway through the Trick or Treat series, so we will have part 3 next week with a review of WCW Halloween Havoc 1996, where we will welcome the new special guest enforcer, Patrick Lilly. From everyone here at Podcast World Order, thank you for watching, and remember, at the end of the day, it's referee's discretion. I'm Codd Sinclair, and we'll see you next time.